Hello, and welcome back to listening to us talk about really bad movies that we've watched. I'm Tim, and I'm joined by Erik.
Hello.
And Steve.
Hello.
We watched a very different kind of bad movie this time. Last time we watched a movie that's almost 40 years old, and this time we watched a movie that is less than a year old, more like 4 months old or something.
And there's some controversy over this one, whereas it's unanimous that everyone thinks the other one's bad.
Amazing.
Right, amazing. That's what I...
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Well, you just ruined my point, so obviously that's not true, but I just...
So we watched Madam Web, and Madam Web has controversy because there was a lot of talk at the time that Marvel might have to sue Sony because Sony was dragging the Marvel name through the mud with movies like this. They would see the Marvel name at the beginning of the movie and think, oh, this is how bad Marvel movies are now.
So Disney was mad because Sony was doing a bad job of it.
Yes.
That didn't age well.
It tanked, right? Like at the box office.
Yes, this movie tanked on a budget of $100 million.
Oh my God.
Made $100 million globally. It's important to remember that the budget for making the film does not include advertising.
Oh, okay.
So rule of thumb is approximately double.
Is that right? However much it takes to make the movie, that's how much they spend on advertising.
So this movie probably cost Sony as much as $200 million.
And they only
made $100 million. So huge flop.
Big loss. Yeah.
I hate this movie. Erik didn't even know who Madam Web was.
Right. I had a vague image of a 90s cartoon character.
Right.
And I think I was correct in what I was thinking of. But that's it.
And Steve was somewhere in the middle. He was familiar with the character, but also this, according to him, was his last episode of the podcast with us before watching this. But I got the vibe that you had fun with this. Or are you coming back?
I don't know if that he had fun with this so much as the concept of what this could be.
Let me clarify that.
Tim's trying to get you to commit to something.
Yeah. I hated Miami Connection so much. Tim gets enjoyment out of how bad it is. I was suffering with how bad it was.
And to be fair, you started off saying you're only going to do it 2.
That's true. Because I feel like I only have so much free time. It's a chore for me to even watch good movies, let alone bad movies. But one thing I would say with this one that kind of maybe is reeling me is this idea of why is it bad? I wasn't cringing at every scene in this movie like I was with Miami Connection. There were moments where it's like, I actually enjoyed this idea or I like this concept or whatever, but overall, it failed. Why did it fail? And that was the fun part of watching this is I'm looking back at other movies that I've seen that I'm like, I don't know why I don't like this, but this is just feels wrong. And Tim was pointing some things out as we were watching that I'm like, oh, I missed that, but that totally makes sense as to maybe why I wasn't enjoying that scene or felt like it didn't work or whatever.
Yeah, to be able to suss that out and make a separation from movies that succeeded as to why it was bad. Was it acting or was it writing or was it the directing or the editing?
Yeah.
Maybe it was poor advertising or just had a bad time. If you made a movie that came out when 9/11 happened, well, no one's watching the movie.
Could be a cultural thing, yeah.
It's very hard to compare this to Miami Connection because they are worlds apart.
Yeah.
Miami Connection does every possible thing wrong, and that's why I love it. You can't analyze what's wrong with Miami Connection because even if you fix 100 problems, it would still be a bad movie. It would just be less enjoyable. Whereas this one, I am confident I know what went wrong, and we can get into that stuff. But they poured money into every facet of this movie. However, the owner of AMC, which is the largest cinema chain in the United States, did an interview when this movie came out, and it was wild. People went to see it and said such terrible things
But this movie
online that ticket pre-orders were going backwards. He'd never seen it before. People were canceling their tickets en masse. Word of mouth shook this movie. I don't think that they had bad advertising. I think they were trying to advertise a bad movie. But let's get into this movie, and then we can break it up a little bit. This is a superhero movie. It is not a Spider-Man movie.
Why do you say that?
It's set in the Spider-Man setting, Spider-Man adjacent.
How do you know
Spider-Man
that?
adjacent.
What Spider-Man character is in this movie, Steve?
There's no Spider-Man character.
Yes, there is.
But there's hints all around that this is... Because, like, there's Ben, Uncle Ben.
Yep.
You've got the villain who looks like an evil Spider-Man.
Yeah, they literally use the costume from
They
Spider-Man.
literally
I
use...
swear.
I'm pretty sure they had to beat it off Tobey Maguire to get it.
They did what to Tobey Maguire?
I wasn't going to comment on that.
And we know Madam Web is a character in the Spider-Man lore.
Yeah.
And Spider-Woman, right?
They don't call her Spider-Woman.
No,
though.
but she sure looked like Spider-Woman and had Spider-Woman powers.
Sure.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
We know a baby is about to be born.
Mm-hmm.
They just refer to it as the baby.
They
the whole
never
time.
called Peter. I don't know why. I don't
They
know. I was
own
waiting for
the
them to call
rights.
Peter.
I knew you were trying to set up some sort
And
of a
Ben
evil...
says, "Oh, I met someone."
Yeah.
And Cassie says, "What's her name?"
Doesn't say it. Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, it's the one." Why not say May? Why are they putting you right to the edge of saying these are Spider-Man characters, but not naming any of them except
Because, Tim,
Uncle Ben?
that's the complexity and depth of this film.
Yes.
You expect the audience to be
Yes.
intelligent. They're not just going to telecast something.
No,
That's
I
right.
told it.
So when you're telling a story...
You can't tell them everything.
Yeah, you don't want to just explain something. You want to do the visual storytelling, right, Tim? Like, you wouldn't just explain what's happening to you in that scene right there, right? You know what I'm saying, right, Tim?
For people who have not seen this movie, Erik is insinuating that they might spoon feed you.
How are you insinuating right now?
Well, actually, and that's the juxtaposition of some of this film. Sometimes they're like, I would have got that without you writing it in crayon in front of me. Like, you don't need to explain things like I'm literally 5 years old. I would have understood it. And then other times, they don't tell us what the name is. And it's like, come on, guys. Obviously, we know who that is. Why are you hiding that from us?
You teased out these things, and then other things...
They beat you over the head.
They beat you, but maybe it's that they literally think that we're not intelligent enough to get these things, so they have to explain it out. Or maybe when they were making it, maybe they didn't have certain rights or something yet. I don't know.
Who wants to give a brief synopsis of what this movie is?
I did it last time. Dibs up.
It starts with the main character's mother. It's in like 1973 in a Peruvian jungle looking for a spider, which we would later find out was to help her own child that she was pregnant with.
You spoiled it. And very accurate with you.
The guy betrays her to get this spider because it's going to give him incredible powers.
To be ceiling guy.
To be ceiling guy. Climbing ceilings. Then he starts having visions of these 3 girls killing him in costume, and he uses his enormous fortune of wealth that he's accumulated, probably in illegal means over the years.
Must have been, but they don't dive into that.
No, but he definitely doesn't want to lose any of that or his life, so he hunts these girls down who are actually now teenagers because he's having like visions of the future. And then this baby of the mom who's dead is starting to have these visions of the future and stuff from after a near-death experience of her own. And she has visions of these girls and she's got to save them. So it's basically her saving them from this evil Spider-Man
Ceiling guy.
ceiling guy. Which, again, the guy was literally wearing a Spider-Man costume with a slightly different mask and all black.
Well, okay, I'm going to spoil it. I think the reason why this movie sucks...
Tell us what you really think. Just
was going to be a 40-minute podcast.
Yeah.
Now we're going to cut that down to 3.5. Yeah. Okay.
The reason why I think this movie sucks is studio interference.
Okay, please
explain.
And we'll get deeper down that rabbit hole as we go, but there's so much that we know changed about this movie. Dakota Johnson is the main character. She's Madam Web. In interviews said this movie changed a ton from the movie that she signed on. She said it wasn't even recognizable.
Oh, really?
We've also seen a lot of the leaked concept art and stuff like that. This movie was supposed to come out right after the most recent Spider-Man movie, but COVID knocked it back.
No Way Home, or that one?
Yep. And
Just
so
like
this
film.
movie was supposed to have both Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire in it, riding that wave of
bringing them back to that movie. Yeah.
And Sony completely owns those Spider-Man.
That's right.
They don't need to share with Disney.
Yeah.
We've seen art of them fighting Ezekiel Sims,
Yeah.
ceiling guy. All of that stuff is cut. So then you have to start asking, what was this movie supposed to be about? And then we start going down the rabbit hole of ADR.
I agree with you about the whole studio interference thing, because we've got famous, successful actors who obviously from other films we can tell they know how to act. And then the director, successful movies in the past, why would you put your name and stamp on this? The only real reason would be, I've got something here that's reasonable, and then it gets cut up and your hands are tied. You can't say, no, that's stupid, I'm not putting my name on it, because the bosses who give you all the money say, no, we're doing this. Somebody higher than the director must have said, I'm sorry, I don't care what you think. We're doing this.
Pepsi. Obviously Pepsi. Pepsi's pulling the strings on this movie.
Do you know if there's not enough?
It was Pepsi that defeated the villain.
Pepsi can't.
Not Spider-Man.
What we need to do is somehow make it so that our product killed the bad guy. That's exactly what happened.
Wasn't there like a video game with Pepsi Man or something? Like, that's what they should have made, Pepsi Man.
And I'll just say, I'm done. Let's go back to ADR.
So ADR is when people re-record audio after the movie has been filmed. It's a very common film technique. It happens in every movie.
To clear up some of the dialogue that was filmed that didn't come across clear on microphones or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe there was wind, other sound distortion, any number of things, just to clean it up.
Or you want to change the line.
Exactly. Give a little bit more context when needed. This movie's ADR is wild in that it doesn't line up with lips moving, but also most of the narrative of the plot is done by people when you can't see their face.
That's right, yeah.
And so
I see.
There's so much that makes me question what this movie was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like when Anya says, you have to go back to Peru late in the movie. That line is done when Anya is not looking at the camera. I don't think she was ever supposed to go back to Peru. You mentioned that Ezekiel is always talking about his fortune.
Yeah.
And none of that ever matters to the movie. It never plays into anything.
But that's his major motivating factor.
But we only know that because he explains it directly.
Yeah.
There's no payoff to that. So my assumption is that that had something to do with the plot at one point. All of the talk about Ezekiel saying that these girls kill him is done when you can't see his face, ADR. And so I don't even think that the girls kill him in the original version. I think it's Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and they've just completely rewritten this movie.
That's an interesting
Because
theory.
they want 3 girls in there as opposed to the 2 Spider-Men?
I don't know why. All I know is there is a good movie somewhere in this, but there's so much buckshot of terrible.
I was criticizing the editing right in the very beginning scene when her mom is about to go into labor. When she's looking at a spiderweb, then all of a sudden she just screams and doubles over in pain. It's so abrupt.
Because we didn't even know she was pregnant.
Yeah, it was like, oh, she's pregnant. Oh my gosh. And look at all this stuff that
happens,
they're telling.
and it's like, oh yeah, look, she's got a stomach, she's pregnant.
And she's got a stomach, and so then right away, my comment is, who's editing this? Like, this is ridiculous. But in light of what you're saying, now, of course, this is just a theory, but in light of what you're saying, I should actually be giving huge props to the editors, because they're probably like, here's what's going on, here's what the director made. Now you need to mince this whole thing up and change the entire storyline from this to this, and I know it looks nothing like it, but go. And they came up with something badly done, but it's like, maybe I should be giving these guys compliments instead of saying you did a terrible job, because maybe they were given an impossible task that they almost accomplished.
Well, and one of the things that you had said multiple times to this movie, Tim, was there's a good movie in here somewhere. There's moments that were very interesting. There was nothing about Miami Connection that drew me in whatsoever, about story, plot, anything.
Kim's eyeliner.
But there were moments in this that I thought, that's interesting.
Or concepts of
what
it could be,
what it could have been. And then you go back to this whatever, like you had said, that villain was forgettable.
And his accent, we need to get
his accent. I don't even know where he was from.
France.
France.
And that's how he would have pronounced it, unfortunately.
Well, I joked he was the Spider-Maniac.
Because that's how he would have said.
But again, there were other things that was like, I don't understand why you're doing this. One of the scenes that I had mentioned while we were watching was she's watching Scrooge. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Got my attention. But Scrooge is one of my favorite movies. Tying in the idea of the ghosts of Christmas past and present, and this idea of the manipulation of time, choices, and beautiful. I love that imagery. But it's not Christmas time in this movie.
In the middle of summer.
You know, it's fall at best. Who's watching Scrooge that time of the year? It makes no sense. Why did that put it in there? Or did they put it in there with the anticipation that it might have been a scene around Christmas or something? I don't know.
Oh, we need to get into the time of this movie a little bit here. But what's wild about what you're saying, Steve, is that since the Marvel craze happened, since superhero movies took off, my favorite Marvel movie has always been Winter Soldier. Yeah. It's amazing, and it's because it's not a superhero movie genre.
Yeah.
It's a superhero in a spy thriller genre.
I loved the Hawkeye TV show
one of the
because it was like a family Christmas, but it was in the superhero genre.
So after Winter Soldier came out, I would always say, I don't want a Hulk movie. I want a horror movie starring the Hulk. I want a genre movie with a superhero in it. Yeah. So ironically, someone at Sony heard me and made this movie specifically for me, because this is Final Destination with superheroes in it.
But as sin always does, and sin is synonymous with Sony, it corrupts and ruins things. That's what had to happen. Sorry, please continue.
That's it exactly. It's like, I'm over here begging for this movie for a decade, and then someone finally gives it to me and says, see, you didn't actually want this. This is a trash movie.
The conspiracy is that the studios wrecked this movie. Do you think that was an intentional move then?
No, I think Sony is stupid. And I can tell you guys a little bit more about that in a second.
Brother.
But I'm going to tell you guys something from comics and see if this walks us further down the studio interference path.
I would assume the studio interfered just to try and tie in further money down the road.
Exactly. Yeah,
money / movies.
So Ezekiel Sims was not a villain in comics.
Oh, really?
He also doesn't wear a spider suit or have precog powers. There is a character named Kane, however, who is a clone of Peter Parker and has a costume that looks just like the character in the movie.
Okay.
He can also see the future and has an ability called the Mark of Cain that gives a burning touch.
Ha!
There is a Cain comic book storyline called The Grim Hunt, where Cain has a vision that Kraven the Hunter would kill him in the future and hunt him down. In the story, Kraven's supporters are trying to resurrect him, but they need the blood of spider people to do it. So Cain and Spider-Man team up to protect Madam Web, Julia Carpenter, Anya Carzone, and Maddie Frank.
So they took this storyline and made it suck.
Very delicately ruined it.
That is so crazy close to what this movie is. And yet also...
But isn't the Kraven the Hunter coming out?
They were supposed to, but they totally canceled it.
No, it's still coming out.
Oh, it's still coming out?
Yep.
Okay, I thought it was coming out,
We're on this hamster wheel. Back when Andrew Garfield was Spider-Man, they were trying so hard to make a Sinister Six movie.
Sinister Six, yeah. Which would have been awesome.
Well, would it have been? Yeah. They were trying so hard. And so the Sony leaks came out and put it all over the place. Yeah. Everyone knew that they were trying so hard to make a villains movie.
Yeah.
Then the Andrew Garfield movies did not go the way they wanted them to. They shelved the Spider-Man movies, but everything comes full circle again. And so what are they doing? They're making Sony movies about bad guy Spider-Man characters. We've got Venom. We've got Mobius.
Yeah.
We've got, well, this not really, I guess.
Kraven.
But Kraven coming next. They're desperately trying to get back to making a Sinister Six movie.
But not any of the Sinister Six villains.
Well, not any good anyways.
Yeah.
I do love one thing, and that's that Morbius absolutely bombed at the box office. I'm sure you guys know about this. Someone posted on Twitter, my favorite part of the Morbius movie was the time when he said, "It's Morbin time," which is not something that happens in the movie. It's making fun of Power Rangers when they say it's Morphin time.
Yeah.
And that became this meme that surrounded Morbius. Everyone said it's Morbin time. So, like 2 months after it was out, the popularity of this meme skyrocketed.
Okay.
And so Morbius left theaters because it failed at the box office. And then Sony looks on the internet and all anybody is talking about is Morbius and Morbin time. So some executives like, oh my goodness, people actually like our movie. So what do? They spend the money to re-release it in theaters and broadcast it on the internet. You're welcome. Come see our movie. No one goes to see it. It fails at the box office again.
What? That's amazing.
It is amazing.
How?
Screw you, Sony.
I don't understand. So...
Sorry, Steve likes
so
Sony.
I like Sony PlayStation, okay?
That's great.
And
I
they're
like
very
Sony
successful.
PlayStation. And I would say Sony needs to stick with video games because Sony Spider-Man video games are fantastic.
Excellent.
But yeah, the movie thing, like, it's just so many strange choices. Let's talk about the time thing that you had...
Oh, yeah. Let's
Okay, we're talking about what decade this is. Okay.
2003.
Yeah, so you had pointed at a few things. You're like, is that really a 2003 thing?
So here's what we know. They've publicly said they really wanted to put Britney Spears' Toxic in this movie, which came out in 2003.
Yeah.
They're trying to tie this to Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So it seemed like that timeline could work if they put it then. And honestly, I think that that's kind of cool to make a period piece of the early 2000s. There isn't a lot of movies that take place in that time now, but they did such sloppy work with it. It takes you out of it all the time, right? Like the radio, when Britney Spears comes on, the radio host says, this is Britney's new song. It's going to be a huge hit. It was brand new. But in the diner at the same time, Maddie pulls Anya onto the table and she says, I know you know this song. I know you know all the words.
It was a very new song to know all the
Yeah,
words to.
if it had just come out like that day, how would they know all the words? All these things that we take for granted now don't make any sense in the setting. If it's 2003, Steve mentioned it in passing. 9/11 was not that long ago. We're expected to believe that Cassie, who's a wanted felon, is going to get on a plane and fly to Peru and back without any issues. Yeah. That would be impossible. Yeah. And there's another part where this guy sees the girls who have been, quote unquote, kidnapped at the diner, and he calls the police. They were, quote unquote, kidnapped that day. So how did he have a newspaper that showed all of their pictures?
Wow. See, I didn't even think of that.
Like we're in a world where technology moves so fast. You can look on your phone and you can see.
But they weren't in that world.
That's right. They weren't in that world.
Yeah. But the directors and producers are in that world. And the writers are in that world.
And that's your point, Tim, is that they just didn't bother to stretch their imaginations back to...
But they stretched it good enough, man, that she could fly to Peru and find this spot. You know what, Tim? I was thinking about that. She flies to Peru.
Let's explain what she does, and that we thought was ridiculous.
She flies to Peru from New York.
8-hour flight.
For sure.
5,800
That's a direct flight, if you get it. Takes a bus to the middle of the jungle somewhere, finds the spot where her mother found the spider and got shot and all that kind of stuff, which happens to look exactly the same in the Amazon jungle, no less. That didn't change in 30 years. Nope. Find the guy, have her revelation, fly back. This stolen cab is sitting in a New York airport.
With no license plate.
And clear damage.
From running through a building.
They don't care about that. So there's this whole issue, but the other thing is she finds this exact spot that's a picture that her mother had taken. Sony wants to be able to do with Marvel like Disney has done with Marvel.
Sure.
Let's see what Disney uses in their movies. And they did in Star Wars, when she shows up in The Rise of Skywalker and finds the Death Star at just the right place.
Precise location, precise timing.
Rey can do it in Star Wars. Madam Web should be able to do it here in the Amazon. Why not?
So basically, Sony saw something terrible that Disney did, and they thought, we could do just as bad.
We could do that. And, I mean, Disney seems to be doing well, so...
Yeah, they're making money.
Man, that movie sucks. I don't want to watch that one for this podcast. That's just a nothing movie.
Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah, there's a bunch more. There's a kid playing a PSP in this movie.
I missed that.
PSPs weren't invented until 2005.
The term hangry. The first recorded use of hangry was in 1918, but it really didn't get popular until 2005, 2007, and really reached its pinnacle of popularity in 2011.
But maybe this girl was just cutting edge.
Well, hey, they live in New York. Maybe they are trendsetters.
Yeah.
Maria is Ezekiel's hacker or eyes in the sky or whatever.
Maria.
She's rocking that computer system.
Yeah.
That would be impossible in 2003. I don't even know if it's possible now.
I mean, but it's a superhero movie. There's always these elements of things just beyond.
I'm not even talking about Skynet knows everything. I'm talking about him dreaming about three girls.
Yeah. And then they're able to replicate
exactly what they look like and then de-age them from there, looking exactly accurate.
Yeah.
When they're wearing masks in his dreams too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also they're driving along and this traffic cam takes a perfect picture of one of the girls, which our traffic cams now can't do anything close to that.
So I'm going to be the defender of Madam Web here. I feel that they did so many things so appallingly bad that they opened that door, and then you just started taking the real life scope to everything in the film, and that's not fair, because I think there's a ton of movies where they did stupid things with technology and Skynet. That's everywhere. And you're fine. I bet you Winter Soldier, we could pick apart some stuff like that. But you liked the film, you liked the movie because it had a good story and it didn't have over-the-top craziness. I think you're picking it apart because of those really bad elements. But you're picking apart things that are bad in all movies like that.
You're probably right. However, I believe that all of these lend to that studio interference statement.
Okay, let's hear it.
I think that there wasn't a commitment to do this movie in 2003.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying?
So you're saying that these technological elements
are
because the original story would have taken place in 2015 or 2019.
Sure.
Okay.
PSP 2005, Hangry 2005. Even if they had bumped it back 2 years, then it would make sense that Maddie knows the words to Britney Spears' Toxic. The album that Toxic came out in is 2004. There is so many things here that would make sense if they had just not said that it was 2003. So
they could have done themselves a lot of favors by just not having the date.
If only they had Madam Web to figure that out.
I'm convinced I may have Madam Web powers because 2 or 3 times I quoted the line before it came out. I knew it was going to happen.
That is true. Let's talk about Dakota, though.
Because she regretted it.
Yes.
Right? She regretted making this movie after the fact.
I have been pretty indifferent to Dakota Johnson in the past.
I still am.
But her on the press tour for this movie is what made me
like her?
Want to watch this
movie.
Really? She did not care at all.
She's like, I should have never made this movie. I'm just fulfilling my obligations.
So did she get
people
sued
would
or something for saying
well, I think that she's gonna, in all honesty. Because
okay.
Sony was very open in saying the reason why people didn't go see this movie was because she said bad things about it. And she didn't say bad things about it. She just didn't say good things about it. They said, what was it like making a superhero movie? And she's like, honestly, I don't get it. I probably won't do another one of these. Or, is this a good movie? And she said, well, it's not the movie that I signed up to make.
Right.
And she's not into superheroes at all. One of the interviewers asked her what her favorite Spider-Man movie was. And she said, oh, there's just so many to choose from. and he said,
there are a lot of them.
Name your favorites. Yeah. And her responses were, Spider-Man, here he comes! Spider-Man, and he's back! And the Goblet of Spider-Man.
The Goblet of Spider-Man. You know what she sounds like? She sounds like when they asked Trump what's his favorite Bible verse. That's a very personal question.
It sounds like you don't have an answer and you're trying to be polite.
Yeah, just did not care. To put you guys in my shoes, I'm listening to these interviews with Dakota Johnson. She's not helping this movie.
Which made you want to go watch the movie.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score.
If Sony sues her, you might be able to defend her and say, "Hey, listen, the only reason that I watched
But yeah,
well, let's go. Let's not jump to conclusions there because the story's going in a different direction.
Oh, did I misjudge it? Okay.
So she's not doing the movie any favors. I'm looking at Rotten Tomatoes. It's at 11%.
what's gone up since then?
Okay.
It's a solid 20 now.
AMC is talking about how they've record lost ticket sales.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to see this movie.
For all the wrong reasons.
For all the wrong reasons. So I go to the theater to buy tickets, but you told me this. I didn't want to give Sony my money for making this terrible movie.
That's right.
So,
I forgot.
So you bought a ticket to another movie.
That's right. I go up to the ticket person, and the theater that I go to, the theaters are split into different wings. And so I go up to the person who's pulling tickets for that wing, and I say, hey, I want to go to see Madam Web, but I need to confess, I don't want to pay Sony to make more of these terrible movies.
That's right.
Would it be okay if I paid for a different movie to go see this movie? And they said, oh yeah, absolutely.
Because nobody's in Madam Web.
That's right, because you can pick your seat. And so I said, okay, what is another movie that's playing at the exact same time as Madam Web? They told me. I went back to the counter. I bought tickets for that. And then I went to see Madam Web. So Sony didn't get any of my money.
They did this time.
They did this time.
Rent it. That's true. I'm the only one who'd seen this movie before. So I was looking for different things in this watch through.
You only saw 4 Pepsis.
Yeah. It's only the first movie I've ever seen where Pepsi kills the bad guy.
Pepsi killed the bad guy.
Yeah,
Pepsi is the superhero in this movie. Not Spider-Man.
No, that's why they cut Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. There ain't room for us in Pepsi.
So I don't know if it's because I'm such a terrible film critic, but there was a lot of times where something felt weird or off, and I didn't get it, Tim, until you pointed it out.
The bad dubbing.
Or some of the major gaps, or the twisting of with great power comes great responsibility. You were looking around at us like you're like, please notice how horrible this is. And
what
frankly,
was the line?
When you take on responsibility, great power will come.
They're telegraphing this is a Spider-Man movie.
Right.
Through all of that stuff.
But my favorite thing that Tim pointed out that I wouldn't have noticed is when the ambulance driver is going to drive away.
The truck.
He gets smashed by a concrete truck or some other kind of
dump truck.
And then they zoom out. This big dump truck was going so fast that he had skid marks for maybe 30 feet in front of smashing into the ambulance and killing the guy. But it shows right after the intersection where he smashed into the ambulance, probably another 50 feet past there.
He's in the
road
harbor.
Abruptly ends and goes right into the harbor. It ends there. There is no reason whatsoever
It's
unless...
literally the end of the road.
Yeah, unless this guy was planning on jumping the Brooklyn Bridge or
He was
something.
committing suicide.
Yeah, maybe he was
because he knew how terrible this movie was going to be.
And I guess just at least show me the sad life of the dump truck driver before that.
Kill me because I don't want to be in this movie. Yeah. That was one of the writers of this movie.
Subliminal messaging save us, we're stuck in this movie. Yeah.
I didn't appreciate it as much the first time, but watching this movie a second time, my absolute favorite part is when the bad guy, Ezekiel Sims, is trying to get information out of someone from the Secret Service.
NSA operative.
He uses his poisonous venom touch.
Which we didn't know that he could do.
That's right.
It was mentioned earlier in the movie that the spider people had some sort of a...
The Aryans.
Yeah. The spider Erik.
Lost that eye on
So
us.
he's interrogating this Secret Service
Yes, NSA girl. Yeah.
NSA girl, and he touches her with his poison
his
touch.
poison.
We don't know
That he can even do this.
that he can do it, except that she says, "How are you poisoning me?" Immediately.
And we don't even know.
We can't even
We don't
see
even know she's being
what has
poisoned.
happened to her. Like,
There's nothing happening.
And I just love it so much because in film, there's a common practice, show, don't tell.
Yeah.
It's show us what's happening, don't tell us what's happening.
Yeah.
In this case,
telling.
it's tell, don't show. We don't have any tells that she is being poisoned, except that she blurts
Says,
out, "How are you poisoning
How are
me?"
you poisoning me?
And I didn't even know that was something you could just know about yourself.
Apparently she could. NSA training.
It makes
NSA
me
training.
question everything that I know about being a kid. They always say, don't put bleach and your cleaning supplies under the counter where little kids will get them because they'll drink them and they'll die. Now I've learned that as soon as a kid takes a swig, they'll be like, "That's poison."
I've poisoned myself.
How is this poisoning me?
How is this poisoning me?
based on our conversation alone, going into talk about the theories of corporate influences ruining the show and all the post-production editing and stuff like that, I wonder if her line there is maybe something like that, because the rest of the scene didn't show that, but if they would have, maybe he did something that would make no sense to us at all because it was part of the original script and then doesn't line up, so they had to cut all that out, so she had to quickly say that line for the audience. Otherwise.
So for the listeners, I didn't point out to Erik and Steve that there was really bad dubbing until later in the movie. And because of that, we never analyzed that scene as much as we did later scenes. And there are parts where that woman's lips are moving and there's no audio. So we know that was not the dialogue that was supposed to be happening in that scene, but we have no idea what was supposed to be said. She probably just said over and over again, "How are you poisoning me?"
Yeah, you think that's probably it.
I think your theory is an interesting one, but then it goes back to ask the question, if it is, why did they change it? And I went into this movie, the only things I knew about Madam Web, I remember Madam Web from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah.
I know it got terrible reviews and tanked in the box office, but I didn't know anything about the movie itself. If they changed it to get away from Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, I don't understand why they would have done that. Because I feel like one of the few movies I've seen in theater in the last 5 years was Spider-Man Far From Home, and I loved it.
I really like that movie in theaters too. If you've watched it since theaters,
It doesn't hold up.
it's really weird because every scene where they introduce a new character, they pause for applause.
Yeah.
And it is so weird.
Right.
when
It
So-
was designed
so-
for theaters
yeah,
alone.
it was
social
designed
for
viewing.
theaters.
Because the theater applauded, man, when they came on the screen, and there were cheers and there were hollering and all that kind of stuff. That obviously hit well with audiences, and they knew that was going to hit well with audiences. Why did they, if the original idea was to bring them in, take them out? Other than that, they thought it would take away from Madam Web itself, which I don't get.
There is that. If their goal is to create characters that stand alone without Spider-Man, Spider-Man is held up in these agreements with Disney.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, they made 2 Spider-Man movies, plus his appearances in plenty of other Marvel movies. Then the agreement between Sony and Disney broke down, and both said, we both want more money. It's only because Tom Holland can't keep his mouth shut about anything, and he told everyone in the world that they weren't going to make any more Spider-Man movies because Disney and Sony couldn't agree. That public pressure pushed them back to the negotiating table. So here they are in a situation where unless they use the has-been Spider-Man that they own, Andrew and Tobey, then they need to pay Disney a little bit of whatever they make with Tom Holland in it. So they're trying to make characters that don't need Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Okay.
So they don't have to pay.
so they don't have
Disney.
to pay Disney anything.
So maybe that's why they didn't use the names.
I
Wow.
can't imagine that they need to pay Disney
If they
to
say Peter.
say Aunt May.
Or Peter.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
Peter's not a trademarked name.
Corporate America.
It's so weird. It's so weird. Anyways, so that's all I can really think of is why they might not have used Spider-Man is because they're just trying to build this universe that they get 100% returns on. But I'm not entirely sure. I will tell you the one thing that I know. All of the advertising for this movie pushed hard the 3 Spider-Women.
It did, yes. I remember seeing them in some of the advertising. We only see them in visions. We don't actually see them.
Yeah. Well, and that was what was so funny is this is me with my little bit of Madam Web ability. I saw these trailers for this movie and they all heavily showcase the 3 Spider-Women. And I audibly said, I bet you that is all the footage of them in costume in that movie. And sure enough, there's maybe 30 seconds in the whole movie.
Yeah,
so
when corporate greed takes over.
Well, and you kept saying the whole movie, Eric. You're like, when are they going to get bit by spiders?
And become
superheroes, and they didn't.
No, you just tease it for a future movie, or like.
Well, and I think
100%.
I think they
100%.
wanted to, but because they wrecked this one, they're probably not going to get there.
What I find hilarious is the '80s, like G.I. Joe,
Real American
He-Man.
Masters of the Universe.
You know, we are making this to sell toys. That's what it was. Now, they're saying, they made TV shows to sell toys. Can we make movies to sell movies? No, apparently you can't. Because the movie that's trying to sell the other movies bombed, and these other movies will never get made.
I think it's tragic, too, because as much as I've liked the intergalactic movies that Marvel has done so far, all I want for Spider-Man 4 is something street level. As soon as Spider-Man 3 came out, I said I liked that movie, but the next movie just needs to be Kraven hunting Spider-Man in the streets. Go back to the basics. Yeah. No one remembers him in the world, so you can start over. You can do something a little bit more basic. Yeah. The next movie coming out is Kraven, so they're going to ruin that. And
it's already pre-bombed.
I'm already at the point where I'm not excited to see any of these, and I'm not going to go to see.
I'm so done with superhero stuff. I'm done a lot with Disney, even though this was Sony. I feel like I'm burnt out on that because they made their money off it, and now they're
still trying to wring it out.
It's trying to wring it out.
So I grew up a huge superhero buff. I have way too much superhero knowledge baked into my brain.
More than most people.
And you were a Marvel guy too, right?
Well, Marvel was huge when I was younger. Like, I owned a copy of X-Men #1. So did everyone. They sold 16 million copies of that comic. I had all the trading cards and stuff like that. But I was a DC true believer.
Okay.
So I was the odd one out.
I don't think you're allowed to say true believer when you say DC.
That's true. That's a Stan Lee. Yeah, that's right.
I'm not a comic book guy
nice
at all, but
sketch, though.
I would have never got that.
Excelsior! I play a lot of Lego Marvel.
Okay.
And Stanley's a playable character.
Well, he says those lines over and over again, especially when you're stuck on that one damn level.
So, for me, I was excited when superheroes made it mainstream, but I got burnt out before most people did.
Interesting.
I've been burnt out for probably almost a decade at this point. I'm not done. For instance, James Gunn is making the new Superman movie. He has given me plenty of reason to have faith in him.
I love Superman, but I also love
Henry
Cavill.
Yeah.
I love him, so when they're going to replace him makes me sad in my heart.
Yeah, I agree. I liked Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman too, but James Gunn made the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Of the Marvel movies that I still enjoy, Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
And honestly, to take Guardians, which is a C-rated comic at best, and turn it into what I would consider probably the best of the Marvel movies.
Top in there anyways,
They were fantastic. They were what superhero movies should be. They were fun, entertaining, funny. There was like a good humor in it. And you leave feeling pumped, which that's what a comic book is supposed to do to you.
And he's pretty consistent too. Like when he got fired from Guardians of the Galaxy, he went over and did the second Suicide Squad, which is easily the best DC movie that came out.
I never watched that. Yeah.
It's essentially Guardians of the Galaxy for adults.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not done with superheroes, but I'm so tired of superheroes. And stuff like this trash does not help at all.
But I think enough of this trash comes out, like what's happening with Star Wars, and they're going to leave it alone for a while.
Will they, though?
I think they will.
I mean, they're still going with Star Wars.
When they do enough where they lose money on them, they're going to go a different direction.
Yeah.
They'll have desecrated maybe too many things by that point, but...
My Disney Plus is canceled until Andor 2 at this point. I need a break.
We need to finish up on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a quick roundtable then. Let's wrap this up. I guess, Steve, you had a more enjoyable experience this time around.
Yes.
He's trying to get you again, Steve. Watch out.
Yeah.
Eric, whose side are you on?
I don't know. I'm not sure myself what I want to do with my life.
Last episode, we broke it down to whether a movie was objectively bad or subjectively bad.
Mm-hmm.
Where does this movie fall for you? Is this movie bad because you think that people's opinions are that they just don't like it, or on paper it's a trash heap?
Yeah.
Where do you fall?
I watched this movie and I feel like there were moments I wanted to enjoy it, but I could not enjoy it because it felt like the story itself was very weak. The only interesting concept was Madame Web herself, but they didn't even go into much of what she could do of changing the future and these kinds of things. I think it was just bad. What I find really interesting is why it was bad, and that theory of the studios messing with the original story, which, looking at it through that lens, that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like there is a good story hidden in here that's been cannibalized into a very bad story. I'm not drawn in by the villain. I didn't really care about those three girls, even though I was supposed to. The only character I actually kind of liked was Ben Parker.
Ben Parker was awesome. Yeah.
Overall, I don't like it. I don't know why Sony did what they did with it. I just don't understand how they spend that much money and come out with that.
So you're saying objectively bad?
Yeah, like I said, I wanted to like this movie, but I didn't.
Yeah, so I completely agree with Steve.
How was that movie poisoning me like that?
So my thoughts on it were exactly like Steve's, and Tim, you helped me to solidify my thoughts, and I think it was corporate interference. I think they probably had a good thing. There were concepts in there of how her powers worked and how they were telling the story, and ideas. Ooh, that's a cool concept for a movie. Well, we're watching a movie. And it's like, that's too bad I feel that way because we're literally watching. Oh, somebody should put that in a movie sometime.
Well, and you even said there were certain scenes, the way the scenes were filmed.
There was some terrible cinematography, mostly when it was showing those girls in their outfits, where it was like doing these weird spiderweb flashes, or when she was having her baby, and it was like, you're splicing all this stuff together from something else. Ruined, garbage, but there was something underneath that. It could have, or
it could have. As opposed to Miami Connection, there was nothing underneath that could have saved that thing. There was something here that could have been good.
So are you saying objectively bad as well?
Yeah.
I like this idea that we vote on if it's objective or subjectively bad. I agree that it's objectively bad, but I'm going to say subjectively bad because I hate this movie. I wanted something more.
That's because you said this was designed for you. You felt like there was a lot more potential than we ever thought.
Yes. Exactly. I'm completely in agreement. I spent money on this movie twice, and it's not awful in a fun way. It's awful in a really dumb way. I have no patience for this movie.
No patience to watch it twice.
Definitely not third time.
When I rent it again for full price for the $26
with all the extras
for the special edition version.
I won't appreciate that one time at all. Anyway.
Yeah, it does make me sad because I just don't think that Sony has any clue how to make a good superhero movie.
I think it's the board members, like you mentioned with Morbius. Are you not familiar with people making fun of your thing for popularity? I don't know, it's so weird.
It's not the conversation at hand, but the thing that killed that meme was that Jared Leto tried to jump in on the meme. He did a TikTok where he had gotten the Morbius 2 script and he was reading it, and he accidentally showed the front cover, and the movie was called
It's Morbin Time.
That day, Morbin Time memes just died. It was
Really?
like, it's funny until you have something to do with it, Jared Leto.
We were making fun of you.
Like, they were filming Tron in Vancouver. It's got Jared Leto in it. So I'm downtown, and I'm trying to park in this parkade, and this person, like, waves me on. I'm like, oh, that's weird. So I go to the other entrance. Someone else is like, no, you can't park here. And I was like, oh, sorry, is this an exit or something? And they're like, no, we're filming in here. And I was like, oh my goodness, I could see stuff that's going on in Tron. I could meet a celebrity. And I was like, oh wait, it's going to be Jared Leto.
Never mind. Have a
Never
great day.
mind, I'm out.
He's going to endorse the crap out of this podcast.
Yeah, Jared Leto's never going to listen to us now.
Dakota Johnson, who I made fun of earlier, and then Jared Leto.
Yeah,
How
I
can we
actually feel
ruin
bad about
movies?
Dakota Johnson.
I'm a fan after her interviews.
Yeah,
The
that's
Goblet
gotta-
of Spider-Man.
So how do you sign up for a movie? Because you're not a no-name actor. You've already made a name for yourself.
Sure.
You sign up for this movie, obviously expecting it to be something else. They change it drastically in post-editing or whatever they
morph
do.
it.
But you've signed on,
Yeah, you're
and a
stuck.
part of that is to promote that movie. And you're promoting a movie that you no longer believe in and wish you'd never done. That's got to be the hardest thing in the
That
world.
is the tough bit. It's like being a politician. It's
And we only see part of it in the fallout in that first week that this movie came out. Dakota Johnson fired her whole team, presumably because they locked her into this script.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're probably at the end of this. Steve had a great time, so I think he's sticking on.
I'll
That's
do a
the
third
time.
movie.
oh, he's committed.
I'll do a third movie.
Oh, we should get our act together enough in the future that we can say what our next movie is going to be,
We should.
but
We haven't.
we aren't.
You could put it in
Actually-
ADR.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So
It would have to be like this. That's the way I
yeah,
talk.
and then somebody else will say in a totally different voice. Okay, thanks, Jim.
Just like a spider maniac.
Just
Spider
maniac.
I'm the Spider Maniac.
How are you poisoning me?
Who are you poisoning me?
Okay.
Okay, we're done.
See you.